This is The Official and the Hermit, a Han folktale. During the Zhou dynasty, when Louside was the keeper of the archives, there were signs that the sovereign was losing control of the vassals, and the dynasty appeared to be crumbling. In despair of being able to help, Louside left his official post, renounced all worldly matters, and went to live as a recluse. The Tao Te Ching that he allegedly wrote formed the basis for the philosophy known as Taoism. Whoever sought the way and virtuous path of Tao followed the teachings of Louside. In every dynasty thereafter, a conscientious official, a frustrated scholar, or any disappointed individual often copied this pattern. It became a way of life to withdraw from the hollow, corrupt, degenerate life of the court or officialdom. This was frowned upon by men who followed the teachings of Confucius. Whereas Confucius spoke of the rules and regulations to establish social order and harmony in life, Louside emphasized living in harmony with the natural order of the universe and said, "Regulations and laws merely reflect the frailties of human behavior. Let each person perfect his own life, and order will prevail." Confucius believed in involvement in action rather than withdrawal and inaction. Their beliefs and way of thinking were poles apart. Yet it has been said that there is a little of the Taoist in every Chinese, and though politicians, bankers, or merchants may publicly denounce this way of life, they secretly admire it and read Taoist philosophy in private. The ancient superstitious belief in predestination and unseen forces intermingle with the philosophy of Confucius and Tao in this tale. The down-to-earth reasoning, so characteristic of the Chinese, was revealed in the amusing incident of the boy's appearance on the riverbank. No unseen forces guided the boat, but the former servant boy was sent to bring the two friends together. As bosom friends, each was courteous, modestly disclaiming any attainment in life. The Confucian scholar admired the hermit and vice versa, but each went his own way in the end. Which brings us now to the actual tale. Feng Chung and Tang Yi were schoolmates and very close friends from the same city in Honan province. Both came from distinguished families and were learned scholars, but their aspirations were quite different. Feng typified the scholar imbued with the classic teachings. He always abided by the social rules and traditions, which was courteous, meek, and never criticized people or gossiped. Tang was genial, chivalrous, a knight-errant, with the spirit of a galloping horse. He was muscular and strong, capable of bending a bow that required the strength of 200 caddies. His arrow could hit a target without fail within 100 paces. Their diverse interests and personalities seemed to complement each other and sealed a firm bond of friendship. One day, they set out together to enjoy the beauty of the countryside. They chose a quiet, secluded spot near a cascade where they could rest and chat. Feng picked up a pebble and, casually aiming at a willow branch, said, "Let's see if it hits the branch to forecast my fortune and future success." The pebble actually hit the mark. This was surely fortuitous. "Congratulations! Congratulations!" his friend exclaimed. At that moment, a small bird darted over the treetop, and Tang murmured, I'll also cast my fortune." No sooner was this said when he shot an arrow swiftly toward the sky. Alas, the bird flew away, and the arrow fell into the creek. Tang broke his bow, threw the arrows on the ground, and shouted, "Finished!" "We are only joking," Feng said, trying to console him. "Why do you take it so seriously?" "I can hit a target 100 times without fail, but today has to be the one day I miss. It is predestined. I've made up my mind." That year, Feng joined the first public examination and passed. The next year he again passed, this time with honor, and was awarded the title of Xinzi, similar to the degree of a doctor. Tang, however, wandered among the mountains and rivers without any intention of taking part in the public examination for martial art, and turned a deaf ear on Fung's friendly advice and persuasion. When Fung was later appointed to an official post in Fujian province, he sent a messenger asking Tang to accompany him. But Tang ignored this kindness and never even gave the courtesy of a reply. Then he left home for an undisclosed location. The memory of his good friend always made Fung sad and brought forth a sigh. Whenever there was a festival, he dispatched servants with gifts to look after Tang's family. He kept this up for over 10 years, yet there was no news of Tang. One day, Fung bought a houseboy who turned out to be very obstinate and lazy, doing nothing but eat and sleep. Somebody advised Fung to get rid of the boy, but Fung replied, "The boy is still young. Just because his master was changed doesn't necessarily mean that he would change his habits and obey orders." One night, a band of robbers descended from the rooftop and entered Fung's house. Their faces were covered with masks, and each one carried a knife. The whole household was awakened, but no one knew what to do. Only the boy seemed to know. Jumping from his bed, he raised his arms and let out a fearful growl like an enraged tiger. He grabbed hold of their wrists and broke them one by one, and then hurled all the robbers over the garden wall. Everyone stood dumbfounded by the boy's feat. He had saved the entire family. After the confusion subsided, Fung gave an order to fetch the boy, but he was nowhere to be found. Some years later, Fung resigned his position and sent his family back to his native town, while he hired a small boat to visit his relatives and friends at the Yangtze River. The boat was tied to the wharf at the river port, Qingkou, for the night. At midnight, the anchorage broke loose and the boat began to drift with the current as if guided by an unseen force. In the dark of the night, there was no way of knowing what direction the boat was taking, but it must have traveled hundreds of li, and the boatmen feared everyone would be drowned. When dawn came, the boat suddenly ceased moving, stopped at a sandbar. On the bank of the river, there stood the boy who had disappeared from his household. Fung was astonished when, without any ceremony, the boy called out, "My master has been waiting for you a long time." "Who is your master?" Fung asked with curiosity. "You will know when you see him," he answered, and led the way. After going many li through a forest, treading over pine needles, passing murmuring streams and several mountain tops, they reached an opening. "My old friend," a voice called from the cliff. "I haven't seen you for many years." The crystal-clear sound penetrated the veil of thin air. Looking up, Fung saw a saintly figure on the top of the cliff. He wore a robe of plain cloth and a headdress which flowed gently in the breeze, imparting an ethereal grace. He was none other than the long-departed friend Tang Yi. The mere sight of him brought tears of emotion. The cliff looked ever so steep and unattainable, but suddenly a hempen ladder was lowered and the boy helped Fung to mount. After reaching the summit, the two friends embraced and wept. Fung observed that there were only a few thatched huts and 2 attendants, the boy being one of them. A stone bench, a pine-wood table, stove, and an ancient guitar were the sole earthly possessions inside the hut. Fung asked Tang what had happened after their separation. To this query, Tang answered simply, "I traveled along until I reached this mountain. Fond of its beauty, serenity, and spaciousness, I decided to stay. I was afraid that I might never see you again, so I sent my boy to attend your house." Only then did Fung realize that his friend possessed deep insight into the unknown and had already perceived years ago that something would happen in his household, and he sighed. "You wander proudly and sing amidst the cloud and mist. You retreat, living among the mountains and forest," he said after a reflective pause. "As for me, I am still laboring in the ocean of dust. Compared to you, I am far, far behind." "On the contrary, my friend," Tang replied, "you are destined to have wealth and authority, to benefit mankind, to relieve sorrow and bestow good fortune on people. What use am I? My unconventional step achieved nothing. Rambling, roaming, lost amidst hills and rivers. This is just an escape from the world, a means to preserve myself. It is the result of despair, a contradiction of reality. What is there to admire?" Tang afterward led Feng down the cliff through fragrant pines, over zigzag footpaths and murmuring creeks, until they reached the bank of the river. There they sadly parted.